Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I just want to welcome everybody to this session with Charles Blow. Before we get started, just a quick reminder, please silence your cell phones. And I would like to remind everybody that all the books being presented here at the festival are for sale up on the plaza, and a portion of the proceeds do go to support the festival. You can also make donations, which we would very much appreciate to kind of keep this party going. That's how you show your love. Okay, so most of you know Charles Blow from his regular op-ed column at the New York Times. He writes about a wide range of social and political issues. He's had a column at the Times since 2008. He previously served as the paper's design director for news, and he was also the art director for National Geographic magazine. And we're here today to discuss his memoir, Fire Shut Up in My Bones, which is about, it's a very rich story, and it's about his childhood in rural Louisiana and his youth, but the focus of the book is on an episode of sexual abuse, or two episodes of sexual abuse that happened in his childhood, and the repercussions of that and his own struggle coming to terms with that. So please welcome Charles Blow. What we're going to do is we're going to have a little conversation, and periodically Charles is going to read some passages from the book, and we'll open up the floor for questions for a few minutes, for sure. And I do want to remind you that we're going to break up here a few minutes before noon and go upstairs where Charles will be signing books. And if you want to get your book signed or say hi, that's the place to do it. Okay. As I said, the focus of this book is on your experience of sexual abuse as a child and the way that led to a questioning of your own sexuality, and of course you had all that trauma to deal with, and so that's the focus of the book. But it's a very rich story about a rural Louisiana childhood and being a young man at a university, being a member of Black fraternity, and so I wanted to kind of give everybody a context for understanding the episode of what happened to you and how you dealt with it. So I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about this little town, Gippsland, Louisiana, where you grew up.
Okay.
Just describe it for everybody.
Okay. Well, first, thanks for coming. There's so much competition and really great authors at this time, so I think somebody's conspiring against me. So thank you for being here. And so, yeah, the little town of Gippsland, and it was probably when I was born, we probably had about 1,000, probably have fewer than that now. It is North Louisiana, kind of middle of the state along I-20. It's a segregated town, well, was segregated, still is to some degree a segregated town. Most of the white population lived on either side of Main Street, which was actually on the eastern side of town. Most blacks in town lived on the western side of town, and I guess we lived on the blackest street because we were on the last street on the west of town. And everything was segregated. Louisiana dragged its feet forever after Brown v. Board of Education, and so the year I was born was the year they were finally forced to integrate schools. But as with a lot of communities, the academies popped up, and academies were basically places where white people could send their kids so they still would not have to be in schools with black kids. So all of the white kids, other than a few of the poorest kids, left. So there were only, I think, what I could count when I was young was about 5 white kids at our school. And, so I didn't know there were white kids in town other than these 5 kids, because we never saw them, ever. And part of that was because their academies were so far away from Gippsland that they left very early in the morning to get there, and they got back to town very late, and even in particular if they had school sports or something, they participated in after school, so they would have to wait for a late bus. So you literally never saw these kids. So I didn't think that they existed.
So did you feel pretty insulated from racism? I mean, you know?
Well, I mean, I think racism was in kind of an ambient presence.
Right.
So there were the fact that you are that you live in segregated communities is very apparent to you. Even the cemetery, well, the way they describe it, there are actually two cemeteries. They just abut each other, and there's a chain link fence between them. So that none of these dead people get the wrong idea and cross the line. But the way they describe it is two cemeteries with two cemetery associations, which, as far as I can figure out, just basically means cutting the grass. But that's how you can justify it and say, well, it's not a problem. We need to have different people to cut the grass. So it's there, but in a way, you're right. I am insulated from kind of overt racial warfare as it plays out for many people in America. And I even read one review of the book online where someone's asking, well, why doesn't he talk more about racism? And part of it is because that wasn't my life. There was a period of about 2 or 3 years where I went to an integrated school, which was a horrible experience for me. But after that, I came back to this predominantly African-American school. And, this is a school that has an incredibly long history and roots. It started as the first black college in North Louisiana. It was called Coleman College, and it was founded to educate the sons and daughters of freed slaves. And so you have these pictures of these incredibly erudite-looking professors at this college. This is what I grew up seeing. I didn't see, juxtaposition of, black poverty to white affluence. I saw erudition and sophistication, and they taught Latin and botany. I mean, that was kind of the heritage that I inherited. And so those teachers never let you forget that you were part of this tradition. And so, every room that I was in, there was a black person who was the smartest person in that room. So this idea that black people weren't the smartest people in the rooms never even occurred to me until I was older and I had to be in more integrated environments. But by that time, I always assumed that even if you weren't, you could be. And that I ended up going to a black college, which was just basically going to the closest college to my house, which is like 20 miles down the street. But it was the same kind of experience. And so you didn't have these sorts of struggles where somebody, you run for student body president and you don't win and you think, oh, they didn't vote for me because they're black. No, we didn't vote for you because we don't like you. That's kind of that's the only explanation there was. So I didn't have those experiences. And so I come out of that with none of those sort of kind of psychological wounds.
Mm-hmm. And your mother reinforced that because when you were small, she was working in a chicken processing plant and then went back to school and became a school teacher.
Yes, she did. And now she was elected to the school board, after post the retirement. And she called me the other day. She says she waited until the filing deadlines were over, and she's going to run unopposed. So basically, she'll be reelected. So she's ecstatic about this. But no, there was a determination in her to make something of her life and to be a professional, because you have to understand, this is a really small town, and there are not a lot of avenues. I once wrote a column about teaching, and I wanted to interview my mom to ask her why you became a teacher, and I thought that she was going to say, oh, I just love kids.